Hey, and we are live.
Yes,
Welcome,
sir. We
everybody.
are live, just barely. Well, good,
Like the
good,
undead.
good morning. Yeah, last week, I think I drove all night to get to the broadcast. I did exactly the same thing tonight. This morning, tonight, and this morning is kind of the same thing to me. This morning, so I was in New Mexico last night, and so I drove all night to get here for this broadcast. So this is how important these broadcasts are.
Well,
We will drive all night long just to get to a camera.
and welcome everybody to Pop Psychology Live. So it may sound like we just send Doc out, hit the road, and drive at least a week away from where we're going to broadcast, just
Right,
so that we can make him drive back in time for the broadcast.
right.
That's not actually how it works. He chooses to do this.
I do. I do. I have been on the road for literally three and a half weeks.
Yes, yeah,
And I
it's been
did
a whirlwind
10,
tour.
10 states in 3.5 weeks, and some of them multiple over again.
Very nice. Well,
Yeah,
this is Pop Psychology Live. We are here to rub your brain in any way we can fathom.
absolutely. Sometimes the right way, sometimes the wrong way, but again, like Scott says, we will rub it sometimes against your will.
And each week we'll find new and different ways to rub your brain.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
this week we have a couple of different things. We are going to talk a little bit about Yelp. We're going to talk a little bit about some more pop psychology myths.
Yes,
Uh, and that is a broad topic that we will apply to a great many things as we get into our discussion today.
perfect.
But it's important for us to first have a disclaimer, right,
Yes.
Doc?
Unfortunately, yes, especially since one of us is in California and the most litigious state in the country. So the, certain necessities prompt us to say certain things about these kind of things. Even though we love to be here, we love for you to watch, and we want you to watch, and we want you to follow along. Just certain disclaimers have to be said, which basically are this is a great show, but the worst advice that you could ever get. The points of view are pretty skewed. So if you're looking for something that's meaningful, sometimes we can actually say those things, and we talk about meaningful subjects. But if you're here looking for a serious psych discussion, that's usually not here. You won't find it here. Um,
If you're working on your doctorate in psychology, we will not be very good material for your
oh no,
dissertation. Uh,
we are not good
Otherwise,
references for that
anything we say will
whatsoever.
be used in a context where you expect to be graded for.
Yes, hence the term pop psychology, uh,
Yes.
not real psychology. It's pop psychology. It's kind of the lighter side of psychology. So
And we say
um,
pop is as in popular,
popular, thank
although
you.
a lot of the things we say are very unpopular.
Yes, and
But
some of the
unpop
things we say
psychology,
are very true as well. They're true, and it's good material. It's just maybe not so good advice. So if you're looking for really good advice, this isn't the place. You could get better advice if you literally go to the hardware store and talk to the guy at the key place, that makes your keys. He would give you better advice, I think, than we could. But that being said, uh, we will work very hard to give you points of view that we think are important, and maybe spark something inside you that makes you go, I never thought of that. And those are plentiful in our show, but that's just the way it is. And we love being here. We love having you as guests, and let's get to it.
well, and like we always say, if you do have an actual uh, mental health emergency, do seek out proper authorities, people that are actually doctors in the field,
Yes, professionals.
or are paid very well to treat you properly.
Correct. Excuse me.
So
Yes.
yeah, so you had so welcome. I assume you made it back home from the environment that we're looking at.
Yes. Yes.
Very good.
Very. Just a matter of hours ago. Got back from, like I said, about 10 states. Some repetitively. Yeah, all the way from here, California, to Atlanta and up to Missouri and Louisiana. And I stopped off at four state hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, one of which was closed down and over 150 years old. And that was a treat to be able to walk around in that place, because it's got that was Bryce Sanitarium back in the day. It was called Bryce Sanitarium. And that was in Alabama. 150 years old, and instead of knocking it down like many of the sanitariums have been, they the University of Alabama bought the property, because the University of Alabama literally built the university around the property that the sanitarium had. So that's the only property they really didn't have, was that. So they just went ahead and bought the property from the state, since it was a closed down sanitarium. And they bought the building and the property, and now the sanitarium is a part of their property now. And so they're electing to refurbish it, spend millions and millions of dollars refurbishing it, and they'll use it for banquet halls and meeting places and offices and things like that. And I really commend them for that, because there's so many of those old state hospitals. They've been lost forever, and they're
Do
bringing it
they
back to its
have
glory.
Yelp reviews for psych hospitals?
They do. Actually, I
Do
have
they?
read tons and tons
And
of
and
Yelp
more importantly, can they
reviews.
be trusted?
Yeah, well, see, that's the issue, because you have very passionate Yelp reviews when it comes to psychiatric facilities. Many of the Yelp reviews have have been by patients, and they'll talk about the abuse. They'll talk about um, the experiences that they had, the conditions of the facility, and so
Well,
it's
so now that
predominantly negative that you'll hear Yelp reviews in
sure,
psychiatric hospitals.
but that's important because, like, I'm looking right here at the definition, the dictionary definition of Yelp, which is a
Really?
short, sharp cry, especially of pain or alarm. So why would you expect it to be something like a glowing, wonderful experience review? I know we've heard dogs yelp, and it's usually because somebody stepped on their foot or their
Right.
tail got caught in the door. And they're like, yeah, and
Yeah.
so we know Yelp is kind of a negative thing, but they built the app that's designed to allow you to do both praise and negative, maybe sometimes in the same review. But I could see how in the psych field that they could have different connotations.
Yeah, yeah. I think that Yelp has its merits, and I don't really know the origins of Yelp and what their master plan was. I believe it was for things like restaurants, and if I remember right, I think the genesis of Yelp was more for eateries and restaurants, things like
Well,
that.
they were originally going to call it yokel, as in local yokel.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
and
Is that
that was
true?
like a local telling you, hey, here's a place to visit or eat while you're in our town or whatever. But the gentleman that started it could not get the domain name for yokel. And so one of his early employees suggested Yelp. And I don't know the reasons why he suggested Yelp, but he did. And it took over, and that's why it now is called Yelp.
Wow. Wow. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and see, that would actually fit better than Yelp. I mean, even with your definition that you talked about. Um, Yelp is has become to me something that I don't use that much anymore, hardly ever. And I used to use it on occasions, but I think that it became a perfect platform for the society that we have currently, and this is kind of a well-known um, uh, idea of what platforms like Yelp and other things have become, and it's called the Tattletail Society, and we are currently in what the experts, the ones that are paid a lot of money to do these kind of things, the experts in psychology have named this society, along with other things that are going on these days. But this goes back almost a decade of being the Tattletail Society. Everybody tattles on everybody. Everybody wants to call people out on behaviors that aren't necessarily important behaviors. I mean, yeah, the Me Too movement, absolutely, that's 100%. We're behind that, and you should be called out for things that are criminal and things that just are horrific. Uh, but not having enough onions in a soup, and then writing a half-page review on how horrible that eatery is, to me, is just is going way over and above what should be stated in places like that, and it's
Someone
become
in
this
this half.
tattletale society. Yeah, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and so to me personally, the times that I have used Yelp, I have maybe two negative responses, and that was just something that they did, just was so over the top in in a restaurant or something. Then yes, maybe I've done that, but that was a long time ago. But predominantly, my goal for a Yelp review now is to help that business. To me, that's what it's become for me. It's it's my attempt to help a business thrive, because so many small businesses aren't thriving, and they're
Right.
collapsing, and they're going away. So to
Well,
me, it's
and let's
become,
hold on. Let's
Yelp has
pause on
become a
that for a
mission.
second. Hold on, hold on. Let's
Yeah.
pause on that for a second, because um, it's a very negative connotation to label it a tattletale generation
Yeah.
or society. Immediately, it's like, oh, these are just people that have nothing to do but complain about or stick their nose in other people's business. It brings up that whole imagery of the rude society.
Hmm.
But what you're saying is that that's a worthless title, the Tattletale Generation. It's worthless to put something in such a category that it's boxed to be nothing but negative from
Right.
here on out.
Right.
And so, looking at it from a different viewpoint, we're able to say it's more of a awareness expanding ability, that,
Hmm.
or it's a comfort. When you roll into a new town, as you've just done a bunch of, when you get into a new town, you're like, boy, I'd like to get a good meal somewhere. Hey, what might be a good place? And rather than just an endless amount of negative stuff. And if it's a bad place, you do want to know that.
I do.
But
Yeah.
and they average out, if you of all the reviews you've got, you'll get an average, you're what, I don't know, they use stars or pickles, or I don't know what they do, but you get, it averages out to where you're 4.3 out of 5 or
Right.
whatever it is. So you get a general idea of what most people are thinking, without it just being this horror show of
Right.
negativity.
Right. And I think that you're right, that in that respect, it's helpful. Like one time, my family and I were in the Midwest, and we stopped in at this restaurant, and my daughter is always famous for whipping out the phone and checking the stars, checking the Google on it, checking the Yelp reviews, and she's reading through, and she says, "Yeah, I'm seeing at least 4 people that have gotten food poisoning just in the last couple of months," right? And so that prompted us to say, maybe we could find another place tonight that's just down the
Consider.
road. And so that that was helpful. And
And you
I,
think too of the effect it has on the business.
mhm,
If you're there, you're working every day, you're trying to make a living with feeding people, providing them something that they may not be able to get anywhere else. So you're working hard at that. And if the reviews keep coming in that, if it's just that, the hostess gave me a weird look, I mean, who cares?
Right. Right.
I would
And
probably get a weird look
that,
too, based on how you sound. But, when you can, as a business owner, take that feedback
right.
and regard it as constructive criticism. If it's that everybody's saying the atmosphere is fantastic, then you've done a great job.
Correct.
If they're saying, so there's weird things, it seemed like the tables were sticky and there's flies and around, then you need to do something about it. And,
right.
and this
And
is
as
a
a
good time for
manager,
that constructive feedback.
as a manager, I would read those kind of things and go,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's something I haven't even noticed, and I've got to address that. I mean,
So
even
like other things
my
in kind of
training has evaluations. The training every single day, and I listen to those. I read those every single time.
And it facilitates growth. But that's kind of what, in a capitalist society or a free market society, to take away the negative connotation that capitalism has had put on it recently. But in a free market, good products will raise up, bad products will drop off.
Yeah.
So you can only offer a bad product, a bad service for so long before you're no longer in the game. Nobody's coming to buy from you.
Yeah,
and so Yelp might help facilitate that constructive process that could actually make a business that may have failed do a turnaround and become successful.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with that point of view. What I don't agree with has been just the triviality of that, and that seems to be so much of Yelp, is just those little silly things that, like, who cares? And they think, the people that are writing that think that the world cares about that.
Because
unless you're Kim Kardashian, that has a gigantic, huge following that would care about those kind of things, then nobody really cares. Not a lot of people care. Maybe 15 people, care about that the onion wasn't quite cooked perfectly on my on my roast beef or something, And so that's the part of it that I don't like. So I don't hate Yelp altogether. I've just rearranged the priorities for myself, and that's all I can do, is just do it for myself and use it for the common good of trying to build people up instead of tearing people down. And to me, that's an important part of life, is learning how to build people up when that's merited, and not tear people down, not to go out of my way to tear people down like that. And so I use it, like, even those little motels that I stop at, and they need help. It's like the little Route 66 motels, and I stayed in a bunch on my trip. I just came from one last night before. And they worked very, very hard, and it's you could tell that the couple was really just trying to make ends meet, and just, if they had 15 more people stop by, maybe they could fix a couple of things around the place, and
right.
and that's all it would take. And so those the good parts about that, then I'll announce, and I'll, what, they were hardworking, they were very nice, they were very accommodating. They actually, the accommodations in this little bitty Route 66 motel out in the desert were better than that the very, very fancy hotel that I was staying at in Georgia, in Atlanta, because here's this place. I'm sure that I wasn't paying for this, by the way. The organization that had me, that took me out there and had me do the presentation, paid for the hotel, and so I'm really, really thankful for them, for that. And and they did such a great job, and they took care of me just like royalty, and everything was just taken care of, and I didn't have to work for anything. I didn't have to do anything. It was just, they made it so wonderfully seamless and a great experience.
Was this the AAMN?
Yes, it was. It was the AAMN.
Oh,
Yes.
just a second here.
We'll stop working on something.
I'm working on something here. Just a second. And let me see if I can just give them a little credit where credit is due.
Oh, they deserve all the credit
because they are one of our sponsors. There they are. Look at that.
That
AAMN
is awesome. They deserve that and much, much more. They just took care of me, and they're such an incredible group of selfless people. Let me tell you, the entire group of people that had me out there, the AAMN, they are so selfless because, yes, they have an organization and they help people all over the nation, but the people that I met were putting in their own time, their own money, their own effort to make this a successful organization and to give back to the community and to healthcare and to nursing. And
can you tell a little bit about what they do?
Were amazing.
Can you tell a little bit about? So, are they the American Association of Men in Nursing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they promote. It's not just men in nursing. They promote just nursing in general, but it's an organization of individuals that want to promote the better understanding of how men can contribute in nursing, because there was such a stigma for so many years that nurses were female,
right?
And so males in nursing came along, and that was a little bit odd years and years ago. Like, why would you want to be a nurse? Just like Meet the Fockers with Ben Stiller, right? And they were making fun of him because he was a nurse. Why didn't you go and be a doctor or something? You're a nurse. Don't just women do that? And so there was such a connotation of that, and so they're trying to maximize the understanding of what men do to contribute. And fun fact of the day is that back in 1700s, 1800s, there were only men in nursing. Women were actually not allowed in nursing until Florence Nightingale started advocating that and getting females in as nurses.
No kidding.
Absolutely. They would not allow women to be nurses. And the nurses that they did allow had to pass purity tests, whatever those were.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That they were pure of soul enough to be a nurse, to rise to the stature of men in nursing. And so men in nursing actually started, that was in the beginning. And
so when did it turn around to where it was looked at like there are no men in nursing?
Right, exactly. It just
when did that turn around?
And so now it's an organization that's promoting what men do to contribute to nursing and to kind of get rid of the stigma. And they've done an excellent job. And these guys are just so selfless. That's one of the words that kept coming to mind dealing with them, is they were such a selfless group of people. They were, all the efforts that they were doing were just spectacular, and I commend them greatly. And it was a privilege to be around them for a weekend, and they made my stay there just absolutely perfect. So I'm not appreciating the hotel. The hotel was wonderful. I was just making a kind of a funny an analogy of it, the fact that the room that I'm sure that they paid a ton of money for to put me up didn't even have a fridge or a microwave, right? Where this little bitty Route 66 motel that I paid like $30 for had a great huge fridge and a freezer and a microwave and all the towels that I wanted, and they really were working hard. And so it's not one's better than the other. It's just that people are trying very hard to please. And And those little bitty places, that's much, much harder for them to please, I think, than those big hotels, because the hotels just kind of run it themselves, those big ones.
Right.
And so just the fact that they put so much effort into those little bitty hotels that they don't need to, and I want to appreciate that. And that's kind of why I spend so much time Yelping places like that. I want to promote them, and I want to get them be successful. Like the place I stayed in, Lordsburg, New Mexico, that is literally a ghost town. It's so many of the places have collapsed there. Only probably 1 in 20 businesses still exist in that little town.
Oh, boy.
And there are only a few little motels left. There's only maybe one little cafe that's open sometimes. The bars there, I think it's kind of a shadow of itself that I used to go to decades ago, but they're just struggling, and that whole town is just on the verge of collapse. And so, yeah, if I can do anything to try to boost the business, I'm going to do it. And that's what I use Yelp for these days.
Okay. So on some of the negative reviews, what value do you see of those negative reviews as catharsis?
I've got the big monster today because I drove on it.
Is it a way for people who have had a frustration, an experience that obviously they're holding on enough to where they want to get it out in a fashion? Do you believe that some of those that Yelp might provide a small platform for catharsis, for allowing people to get some of that out of their system?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's kind of what you're saying, to get it out of their system. I think there is a part of all of us that want to feel heard. That want to feel like what I have to say matters. And that's the importance of Yelp a lot, and lots of different platforms like Instagram and Facebook. And people just in general, humans want to feel important, and that what they have to say is important, and that people care. And so that prompts a lot of people to throw stuff out there, even when not a lot of people are listening. It's just the idea of Instagram is out to the world, right? It's just out to the world. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't see that. But it's important personally, I think, for people to throw things out there, because that's the crux of a lot of it, is just to feel important, feel like what you have to say matters. And I think that's a lot of why people are so have built the platforms of Instagram and Facebook and things like that, TikTok, that people are listening, and one person who may not have ever had anything to say that anybody mattered. Maybe they were neglected as a child or something, or gaslighted as a child, and nobody listened to them, and they felt unimportant. And then for the first time, they've thrown something out there to the world, and actually people responded and said, wow, that's amazing. And so I can see that it can be catharsis, like in throwing stuff out there, and actually people liking it. It's a kind of a slippery slope, though. Some of it's really skewed, and that's the downside, is when you start changing yourself to match everybody else, and to please everybody else. And that's the dark side of it. All the body morphing programs and things that make them look all thin and perfect, and the perfect eyes, and that part is not healthy. It's just trying to look like the people that are important on Instagram.
Let me turn that filter off, because that's what I've been doing here. There you go. That's what I really look like, everybody.
There you go.
There, yeah. That's what I really look like.
Yeah. Yeah, you take what you get with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the filters to me are sad, and they're kind of disturbing, that people feel the need to do that as they announce to the world, I'm important and what I have to say matters. So it just should be just what I have to say and who I am, and especially body shaming. It just disturbs me so much how people body shame, and somebody who like a woman who has curves going out there and putting themselves out there, and then you have the trolls that come along and give them such a hard time. It just makes me so frustrated that people have to go there. They have to go to the dark side. They have to throw all the negative stuff out there, and when people are trying to be positive, that's the frustrating part.
So it's taken the concept of the funhouse mirrors from days gone by and turned them into like the sad house
Right.
mirrors. That's terrible. That's a but it's a weird mix of things too, because in a world where uh, people have become insignificant,
Mm-hmm.
they feel it. Society tells them that it's just kind of everywhere. Like you don't matter
Yeah.
from pre-birth to death. You don't matter,
Yeah.
and so people are looking for these ways to
Right.
get a type of validation, to
Right.
get something that says, oh no, actually I do matter. Look, I have 56 people that say I matter, so yay, I finally matter. I never had that before.
Right.
But would these different applications, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, um, TikTok, any of the social media sites that are really purposefully built to be addictive, to become an essential part of your day,
Mm-hmm.
with frequent reminders. If you've started to go about your day and have forgotten that you have a Facebook page, boom, you'll get a thing that says, wait,
Right.
on Facebook, this just happened. Come back, come back.
Somebody's thinking about you.
Yeah, or not even you. It's just a, hey, there's a new cat video. Oh, wow. I better interrupt my whole day and get back in there.
Right.
And then an hour's gone.
Yeah.
And so, what you were talking about, where you begin to change yourself
Right.
to conform to what these platforms are asking from you. And it's funny too, because when you look at, there's two different sides of it. There's the user's side of it, where they are experiencing this desire to continue with this application. There's a part of them that is fed by it. There's a part that's fulfilled by it, and there's a part where that keeps them hungry for more of it.
Right.
And and the other side of that is the app makers, that they are brilliantly building these apps for that exact purpose.
Absolutely.
That you must learn that you can't live without the app we've created.
Correct.
And so we will constantly inject ourselves in your life in a way that you go, oh boy, look, I got to notice. I got something.
I'm important.
And I got to go find out what I got.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a slippery slope of what's important in life, and what we should always check ourselves in knowing, and just within ourselves, knowing what we should be putting as important and not, and just as long as you can use it as a platform for positive and not so much negative, and not try to change yourself to be what you believe other people want to see you as, and that's where it gets dark. As long as it's a confident platform of look what I did, and then you put something out there and people go, yay, that's really cool, then yeah, it can be something helpful for that person. Maybe that person has never had anybody um, uh, think that they did anything wonderful before, and now people do, but it's a little bit artificial, though, to me. The social platforms are a little bit artificial. I think that it represents itself a little bit too much of that people really do care sometimes, and that's where it becomes dangerous.
And I get to see both sides of that as a user, or if you have kids, you get to see their response to some of these social media platforms
Mhm.
and how much it becomes a part of their life.
Right.
But then on the side of building these software platforms as well,
Yes, and you
where
have such a unique position on that because you are the person who's helping to build those platforms, and
but
that's
at
really
what point does your desire to have a successfully marketed and utilized product
Mhm.
become diabolical?
Yeah.
At what point do you enter into that realm where, well, we've asked our people to become addicted to this. We've done everything we can imagine to feed all the different aspects of a person, their
Mhm.
emotional aspects. We give them laughter, we give them sadness, we give them news, we give them everything that they could possibly want, and we encourage them on a regular basis to come back and get more.
Right.
Always come get more. We will never disappoint. Every time you come in, you'll happily lose an hour of your life because we'll keep giving you more,
Happily,
and
right.
you'll love it, and you
Yeah.
won't be able to walk away. And so, but at what point does that become diabolical? Is that bad? Is that negative on your subjects? They become your subjects. They become people that you are taking and moving in a direction, in a very calculated direction, where if it doesn't meet your marketing statistics marks, you abandon that and you go somewhere in favor of it being more addictive and
Yeah.
grabbing more of their attention and their life, to the point where you're asking these people to become a form of a slave to your software,
Right.
and that equates to success.
Yes.
That means now you can get the big checks. Your stock price will go up. You have all the capital you need to keep growing and expanding. um, it becomes diabolical at some point.
It does, and I think that it totally depends on the person that's putting out the product, because advertising, it makes the world run, and making advertising dollars helps to, like you were saying, promote the business and grow the business and make the stockholders happy. And so, as a business model, it's a perfect storm of success. And but that the flip side is that the microcosms of how many people use that, there are going to be people who abuse it, people who need it, people who do well with it, and people who don't do well with it. And it's such a it's such a mix of just millions, and in some cases billions of variables that change daily. And so it's nothing that you can really control. I think that the control you have is what you put out there, and the I guess the motivation of what you want, which is just putting a platform out there for people, make money by advertising. Um, but it's going to have a consequence. I think that's with anything. Even the putting out rock and roll in the 50s, had a consequence. People were just going crazy, and and the parents were going crazy because the kids were going crazy over this rock and roll, and so part of those people had a consequence. So it's like every single thing that's new, that's out there that people consume, there are always going to be the positives and the negatives. That's always going to be a consequence, and an adaptation, or excelling at something. And it's just, I guess, it comes down to, personally, every single person has to take responsibility of how they use it or abuse it, and to do it in a healthy manner, and try to think of it as is this healthy or is this not. And that's a responsibility that all of us have, I believe, and as parents, we what we see our kids using, we have to be responsible of what our kids are experiencing and using and seeing as well. Can't just use it as a babysitter and expect that to go well. The iPads or video games. Video games themselves are not the problem. It's how people process those things, how children process them is the important part. And parents have the ability to help process that in a good or bad manner. And so if the child is allowed to process it with just themselves, then they may take a bad road. So it's the parents or guardian's responsibility to help that child process that information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about some of the brilliantly positive things too that come out of it, or problems that have been solved to a degree, if you think about things like product buying or consuming, when you're looking at that new jigsaw and you don't know if it's any good or not, but you're looking on Amazon or at Lowe's or Home Depot, you're on one of their sites, and there's 15 people and they give their experience, their actual experience with that product. Of it, they all say it was fantastic. This is the best one I've ever had. I thought at one point I was going to overheat it, but it didn't. Whatever it is, whatever the depth of their review, but then you get an idea of, well, that's probably a safe product for me to buy. That sounds really good. And we never had that before. You would walk into a store, you had a company that had a reputation. Either you knew about it or you didn't. And if you'd been around it for a while, you might think Milwaukee was great or DeWalt or whatever. You would have some knowledge that came from somewhere else. Maybe it was a parent used those tools, or you worked in a construction site and saw
or
they all
trial and error. You go home and you go, yeah, that didn't work so much.
Yeah, but to have that new ability of getting a lot of reviews, then you get into the things where they're mixed. You get an equal, these people give it a 1 and these people give it a 5, and there's an equal amount of each. And you're like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
Well, you have to read more to do more
5 at the end of this.
Yeah, you have to do more research then. It's like now the responsibility goes on me. Okay, well, I got to read a ton more, and I got to see what the average is and what the problems really are. They really just nitpicking, or are they seriously? I didn't really try it, but I didn't really think it worked well. Well, obviously that's not what I'm going to look at.
The logo sticker wore off the first time I used it.
Yeah, I use those all the time. And so the consumer reviews are serving a purpose. And so, I support those and I read those constantly. The only part that I just don't like about the Yelp Society is attacking and trying to ruin people instead of trying to build people up. Yeah.
So then let's step back from that, whether it's a restaurant or a product or service, or like Angie's List, where it's vocational services that are evaluated and people review on. But reviews have become so popular in a sense that I think if we step back from it, it really is a core part of the human psyche to desire to know more.
Yes.
That we want to know more. And if I think about, say, my grandparents, or I would say, probably my grandparents, for a good part of their life, they had a radio. And that's where they might get some external info, and a newspaper. They could pick up a newspaper.
And I'm sure somebody objected to that.
Right?
Radios. They're terrible.
And then my parents had kind of left the radio realm and went to TV news and the newspaper.
Right.
And those were really their sources of external knowledge. Otherwise, it was books. You'd go to the library. As a kid, I'd go to the library if I wanted to know more. And the books, you'd be hard pressed to find one that had been printed that year at the library, right? So it wasn't always the most up to date info, but it was a source of info that could get you down the road a bit.
Correct.
Now, it doesn't matter what you want. It's there.
It's
It's
there.
available.
It's there.
And so that desire to know more and to find out what other people are saying, to get their view, and to be fed information from a myriad of sources,
Mhm.
right now, there's doesn't seem to be a limit on what can be known.
No, I don't think there is. And Google basically just tapped into something that we need since man came out of the swamps. And that was just the, like you said, the need for knowledge, the need to want to need more, to know more. And I think that's just been something that is in our DNA, every single human on Earth from the dawn of mankind, and they just tapped into that. That if you want to know more, here it is, and that's what a lot of these platforms are. They're just the need to know more, and that's it, like you said. And that's going to resonate with every human being, and they are going to spend time, and they are going to spend money, and they are going to spend their attention doing that, because it's just in our DNA to do that. And it's also sometimes in our DNA to tear people down, and as well as some people, it's in their DNA to build people up. And so it's just it becomes a personal responsibility to me, in my opinion, um, that we should try to spend more time building up rather than tearing down. And that's just my personal uh, opinion of where I'm at and where I will always be. I will try
And I
to.
think that's what
Yeah,
we've always said,
yeah,
as on the Pop Psychology Live, is spend your time building people up, getting
right,
to know others in a way that you can have empathy for them,
yeah,
to be able to see it from another viewpoint than your
mm,
own, or your initial viewpoint, being able to expand your view to include others' viewpoints.
yes, absolutely.
We've always talked about that, and be nice while you're doing it.
Right,
Be gentle with other people.
the understanding of other people, other cultures, other viewpoints. Just be open, and the more open people are, the more they will understand about other people, and then they'll start to bridge those gaps that we have, that some of the humankind has worked to divide, and you'll actually start to bridge those gaps that exist. And I don't think that some of those gaps um, should be there. And there's no reason why some of those gaps in mankind should be around still. And it's just people who don't understand, people who are bent on just getting you to understand my point of view, instead of trying to understand other people's point of view, like you said.
And so, do you see, like, where we're at today, uh, with the whole COVID insanity that's going on, and the effect of closing people's exposure to things, and their view to things? I'm of the mind that it's very beneficial to experience other things, to
Yeah.
go see other cultures, to spend time with people different than you,
Hmm.
to look around, and at least see that there is something different than you,
Right.
and to acknowledge it, that that's okay, that something exists besides what you think should exist, and to acknowledge that. But now, with people being, confined more and locked down more, with less access to that, less means of travel. You can still drive, fortunately. You can fly, but it looks like a barbaric experience anymore.
Right.
It looks terrible to actually have to do that and be corralled like a animal on the way to slaughter to get onto a plane.
Hence
Uh,
the fact that I put 9,000 miles on my car just in the last
yes,
3 weeks.
yeah.
I wasn't going to fly.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and then they're like, oh, well, the airline industry's hurting. Well, yeah, we already talked about that. When you put out an inferior product to something else, you won't be in the market very long. So get
Right.
back to the 50s where you got on and you got a 4-course meal and you were treated like a king or a
Please go
queen on
back.
a plane. Change
Uh,
it to that. Change it back to that, and suddenly I bet you'll be profitable again rather
yes.
than in the hole and asking for 50 billion from Congress. No, do something worthy of the money, and I bet people will give you the money. There's
Yes.
my take on
Right.
that.
Pay for to feel good, and it used to be such a positive experience to fly and just taken care of and something to share with your children. And now it's like you want to shield your children, and I wouldn't ever
Yeah.
want to fly.
Or you want to get people you really don't like and take them on a plane trip. Like, hey, I don't like you. Want to go fly somewhere? Because it's awful.
Because we'll drink and eat and have fun anyway. And used to be able to walk around the cabin and go to the bar and go the spiral staircases upstairs to the second level and things. Those are
Yeah.
so, oh my gosh, those were so great.
But then, but then it calls into question, like cruise ships. They're exactly that. Here's
Yeah.
your Disneyland on the sea. They have water slides and wave pools and roller coasters, and I mean, you can do everything on a cruise ship now. But nobody wants to get on a cruise ship.
No.
So, all right, they went that approach of, you're a king or a queen, you can have whatever you want, you'll be treated like royalty. But now, if you have to do it around other people, nobody wants that. So,
People are afraid of other people. And so now, even more so, the internet has become a thousand times more important now than it was even last year,
yeah.
because people exist on the internet now because they're not in contact with other humans. And so the importance of the internet has really boosted up because of that.
So, explain this to me. Was there a news story that I missed where fresh air and trees can give you COVID? Because we have some trails here, and I'll take my bike on it, and I see people jogging. I see people walking their dog, walking their kids. Maybe that's not the right way to say that. I see them just out there, right, in fresh air, trees, sunshine, and everybody's got a mask.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was it released that now trees themselves will give you COVID, or a cloud perhaps? Are butterflies now carrying COVID? Why are people so afraid to walk outside? I was downtown the other day and I had jury duty. And I went downtown and I parked a couple blocks away because it's free parking. And so I'm walking to the courthouse and I have to go by several big businesses. There's the Pioneer Museum downtown,
Sure.
which is a great place, but has a massive outside grounds, taking up an entire city block of grass, and then the big building in the middle. And so I'm walking over there, and during my walk, it's about a 10-minute walk. Me and one other lady are walking without a mask on our face. And everybody else, people with their backpack on, walking, they've got a mask. People coming out of the museum, they leave their mask on. People sitting in their cars with their mask on, and they're by themselves. Like their car is going to give them COVID if they take their mask off. Their car is going to give them COVID. I
Right.
see construction workers, they have masks because dirt and asphalt apparently and steel beams will give you COVID.
Right.
Has the world just lost its mind? Is that what's happening right now?
No, it's just lazy. It just comes down to people being lazy.
I think
And
it's fear.
it's just habit now. Everyone wears masks now, and well, almost everyone. And if you're that type of person that wears masks everywhere, it just becomes a habit, and you just become it's part of you, of who you are. After a while, it's not just fear. There is a lot of fear out there, but I think it's just they just leave it on because it's just become part of themselves, part of society these days. And that's why they get in a car and they drive around with a mask on. It's like, well, would you wear a condom in bed by yourself all night long?
Don't want anybody getting pregnant. I don't want to get any diseases. I'm just going to leave this thing on.
Yeah, whatever. I'll just leave it on. It's become a habit.
So that's what it is. It's a face condom. That's what we're seeing.
It
is our face condom
all the time. Yeah. And
wow.
It's just become lazy because people that's become the new norm, and it's who they are as a person. And some people actually are liking this because they can walk around anonymously. They can walk around with their stylish masks on. It's become kind of an accessory now.
I've got to tell you, it feels very uncomfortable walking into a bank with like a big bandana across my face. I'm like, it's weird that this is okay. they're cool with this. They're not suspicious of anything. Everybody walks in here like they're going to rob the place.
Right, I know. Can you imagine?
How do you know who the robbers are anymore?
You don't. Nobody knows.
And that's why last week in one day, we had 3 banks robbed here in Colorado Springs because they had no idea they were robbing the bank. They thought they were just depositing their paycheck, perhaps.
It's just become the new norm. It's just,
I
don't know.
It's bizarre. It was refreshing, though. The other day I was in a Come and Go, and there was an old gentleman in there, and he didn't have his mask. And the lady at the counter was very kind to him. And I came up at the point where he was just saying, I don't know why everybody's wearing a mask. And she said, well, because everybody's getting sick. And he's like, are they?
Wow.
Like, are they? And she's like, well, yeah, everybody. And he's like, I just don't see it. And he paid for his stuff and he walked out. And I was like, that is so refreshing because we don't see it. That's my take on it, at least. I look at our Colorado statistics.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a real thing. It's happening. I don't dispute that. I'm not a flat earther. I obviously don't dispute the validity of that this is a very contagious thing. But I look at the numbers that we have here, and since March, of the 90-some thousand cases that we've had here in Colorado, we've had 2,000 deaths. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I mean, 2,000 people, that's a lot of people. That's somebody's moms, their dads, their grandpas, somebody's kids. These are real lives. Mm-hmm. There's no mistaking that this is real, and these are real lives. And then I looked at other numbers of what else do people die from? Mm-hmm. And everything from heart disease to cancer to
car crash,
pulmonary embolisms to everything, all the way down to firearms, to drug overdose, to suicides, homicides, everything like that. And these numbers aren't that big, honestly. They're not that big. The cases are big, and that's where the fear is coming from, and that's what's being touted as this devastating thing to our society, that it's worth putting out all of these businesses, putting them out of business. It's worth locking everybody up, changing your entire habit, become an entirely different person. All of these are based on the fact of the number of cases. Mm-hmm. And then, but when I look at actually the fatality rate, it's very small. Mm-hmm. So that's where I have a real problem with an entire society dissembling itself for the purpose of something that is barely above the normal seasonal flu. And I mean barely. Mm-hmm. Very contagious, but not fatal.
Yeah.
So there's my rant on it.
Right. Duly noted rant too. Yeah, and to me, it was so refreshing to be back in the Midwest and the desert in the last few weeks. And it's just nothing but fresh air and wide open spaces and the desert and people not wearing masks. And it was nice to be in Missouri and actually go into a restaurant and eat in a restaurant, because you can't do that here in Los Angeles at all, still to this day.
Wow.
So actually you go in a restaurant and you take precautions. Everyone's safe. Everyone's, they got this on their mind. It's like, it's a good balance. It's like they've found that balance where when you're around other people, then yeah, you have your mask on. When you get in your car, nobody has masks on in cars in the Midwest.
Right.
And then you go to a restaurant, you wear the mask in the restaurant, and then you take it off and you eat and you have a good time and talk with people. And then you put your mask on and leave, and because you're going past other people you don't know. And then you get to your car and you take your mask off. And to me, it's like I'm just in the habit of if I go to a truck stop or something on the way, mask goes on when I go in. The moment the foot comes out of that door, that mask is off.
Yeah.
And so I wear it when
And that sounds normal.
Yeah.
That sounds normal. Like your precaution. It's like washing your hands.
Yeah.
So it's become a part of our life that you do it. You go into a store, you put it on. The other day, I had a weird experience. I'm standing. I have my mask. There's the plexiglass.
Right.
And the person behind the plexiglass has their mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking at it like, why do we have masks on? Or why do we have this plexiglass? It seems like either or could be fun.
It's like layers of protection.
Right? And next there's going to be like jets of Lysol spraying on you as you're standing at the register to buy your stuff.
I think there are already things like that. Actually, there are places in other countries where they do that. I heard that.
Just spray you.
I think it was in India or somewhere, some other country, and they have little places where you walk in and the jets cleanse you, and then you go in the store, and they've actually developed those kind of things. So they have that already.
And have they found that to be effective?
It's just,
I mean, when you go in, are you still wearing a mask and they still have the plexiglass up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have
multiple ridiculous
layers of carefulness.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's all I know is it was nice to be back in the Midwest and we're relaxed and there wasn't that panic. I didn't feel a panic. I felt a good balance. I felt careful. I felt that people were being careful, but they were being reasonable. I felt that. That's what I felt, that they were being reasonable where I was back in the Midwest. And then you come back to Los Angeles and I just feel that sense of panic.
Unreasonable.
Right. Unreasonable. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're about out of time today. We didn't get to any, other than COVID, we didn't get into any pop psychology myths.
Oh, well, I'll do a really quick one for you.
Uh-oh. Your video just froze up.
Uh-oh. Am I
You are stuck looking away from the camera.
Wow. No, see, now
I have no audio.
Really?
Okay. Are you back?
Am I here?
There you are. Yeah, you were frozen.
Wow. I felt kind of frozen.
Did you?
A little bit, yeah, but I didn't see anything. It's like what I saw was perfectly normal on my screen.
Well,
you saw me in a whole different way.
We're getting some snow here, and maybe it froze the Wi-Fi.
Oh, really? You're getting snow up there?
Yeah.
Oh, how awesome.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount we're supposed to get today, but it's going to go throughout the night.
Oh, that's so awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just a really quick pop psychology myth is that we only use 10% of our brains.
Yeah, that's like everybody's heard that forever, right?
Everyone's heard that.
And that's what so many sci-fi movies are based on. Right. Is that, well, if we're only using 10%, shouldn't we do something about that?
Right. So What do you think? What's your take on that?
Boy, I can tell you that, like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not even convinced I'm using that much.
But it corrects itself. See, and that's
Maybe does it average out over the course of the day? Because then by the end of the day too, it's kind of lagging, and maybe it dropped again.
in the morning. I'm right there with you in the morning. I'm not a morning person.
So maybe there's a time of day where that's accurate. But I'd have to say that because it sounds like such common knowledge, I'd have to say it's not true.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not true. It's just that our brains are actually designed that if there is inactivity in our brain, it will start to atrophy. So that would mean that 90% of your brain would actually go away. If we're only using 10%, then 90% of the actual brain matter would start to atrophy and shrivel. So we're using neurons. I think it's like 86 million neurons are programmed at a split second. And so if it's not properly being used, the entire brain, then it will start to diminish. So and it will default to the useful circuits rather than the unused circuits. So you're using all of your brain. It's just we choose to use parts that go in different directions, but we're using it in essence all of it at the same time.
I pictured that state of atrophy where the brain shrunk down to size of about a little rubber ball,
Right.
like the ball in the paddle thing.
Yes.
That if you shook your head, you just hit
rattle. Yeah.
It would just bounce around inside your head.
Like a walnut. Yeah, just like a little walnut in there.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I really got to use my brain more.
Uh-oh. Only 10%. How we choose to use our brain, that's a whole different story. And we could actually make our brains grow a little bit more if we use more of our brain, but it doesn't diminish. So yeah, it's totally untrue. So
okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now we'll know that some of the sci-fi movies are not true.
Got it way wrong.
Okay. So we have yet to mention the fact that we are sponsored by Phoenix Training Group.
Yes, phoenixtraininggroup.com. Workplace violence prevention training. We come to you, you come to us. We go anywhere on earth and train people, healthcare, law enforcement, federal agencies, Target stores, anywhere on earth that people become cranky and you'd like to have your staff learn better skills on how to relate with each other and understand people more. And that understanding is really important when we're trying to de-escalate a situation or person. And that's what the company does. So that's who we are sponsored by, is phoenixtraininggroup.com.
And we know crankiness is kind of in vogue now, but it's not a good way to live. It's not healthy for you or those around you.
No, there are lots of Instagram posts that show the downside of that and how people don't live very long.
Crankiness could be the end of you. So get a handle on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into the psychology of that and how at another time, and how it just anger overrides any good sense whatsoever. And we'll get into a whole episode of that.
Yes. Perhaps next week we'll get a chance to talk some more about that.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring that up next week.
All right. And then I don't have a cool graphic for it because I've not been able to get in touch with the marketing department at Belladonna Foods. Yes. But I understand that they also sponsor us.
Yes, I will. I will write an email to the marketing department for them.
A strongly worded letter, I suggest.
For this. So right now, this is our graphic here. We have Belladonna's sweet pasta sauce.
Oh,
there you go. Instagram at Belladonna Foods. So the Instagram is at Belladonna Foods.
Just like that at the bottom
Look
of the
at
screen.
that. That
Yeah.
is awesome. Yes, just like that. That's where you
Type
can
that
find
into your Instagram search bar.
the book for the day. By the way, I have a book for the day. Is this one? It's a children's book about being mad, and how to process that as a child, and what
Very
anger
nice.
is, and understanding anger, and that anger is okay. It's just what we do with that anger that can be problematic or helpful to us, where it comes from. So, good little book here. I recommend this for children, right here. Being Mad, a book about anger, and it is written by Molly Wygand, illustrated by Anne Fitzgerald. Right there. There's the
Very nice.
information right there. Yeah, Being Mad. So I
We may
recommend
need
this
to
to
have
your
her on
children.
the show at some point.
Oh, that would be absolutely awesome. We will work on that definitely. Yeah, but that's the recommended book for the day.
Okay. Well, this has been Pop Psychology Live. We thank you, everybody, for tuning in
Thank you.
and listening to us
Yeah.
and watching us.
Yeah, those of you who have, I really appreciate it.
Yes.
It's
We
awesome
hope
to
you
be able to
all
do this each week.
have a great week. Take care of each other. Be nice. Be empathetic. Be considerate of others.
Yes, thoughtful, empathetic, tolerant, and just lives become better. The more tolerant and empathy we use, the better life gets, really.
And despite the cathartic value, sometimes just learn to hold your tongue.
There you go. Or have somebody hold it for you.
Yeah, or they will. Oh no, we'll rub your brain, and if you won't hold your tongue, we will.
I hope that you folks out there have felt that we have adequately rubbed your brain in the manner that you're accustomed to.
Yes, and that it was in no way objectionable.
Yeah, hopefully not.
If it was, send us a comment, and
Yeah, please send us comments. We really
we'll
want
talk to you about
we
it.
want comments, and we want ideas for future shows as well.
Sure. If there's something you'd like us to talk about or address,
Yeah,
to
please.
do a deep dive on a particular topic, we will be happy to do that. Just let us know in the comments.
We would love that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. And to you, my friend, you also.
So long.
Bye bye.